Developing a tender estimate. In the construction industry, generally specialists prepare the original tender estimates, detailing what it will cost to construct the project. A tender estimate should include detailed breakdown of entire project and all components. Calculate labour, equipment and materials for each item. The estimate should be divided into the following components. Costs of an activity equals the sum of costs of all resources to complete the activity. Direct cost of project equals the sum of cost of all activities to construct the project. Indirect costs of project equals the sum of the costs of project overheads. Total cost of project equals direct costs plus indirect costs plus additional elements. Most estimators will have a detailed costing of direct costs of each project activity, a summary of all the direct costs, and also a schedule detailing the indirect costs, all activities or expenses required that are not directly built into the works. Regardless of which cost estimate form you use, it should include headings for activity, material, labour, subcontracts and estimated cost. It should also have areas for direct construction costs, indirect construction costs, overhead and profit. In addition, a column for the actual cost compared to the estimated cost of a specific work item will allow you to evaluate the profitability of a job after it is completed. This will show you where estimates were high or low and enable the adjustment future bids on similar projects. The tender will also be based on a project execution methodology or planned construction procedures. Hence, both the costs and the expected procedures need to be read together. For small tenders and simple projects, a simple spreadsheet can be used. Here the estimator must have a systematic layout that can not only set out the estimate, but be able to be interrogated at a time in the future, like at the review or post-tender, when questions are asked by the client or by the site team trying to determine what costs were allowed. In any estimate, backup sheets can be used that set out the method that was used for determining the quantities of certain items. These should also be self-explanatory so that others can follow the logic used in arriving at the numbers and accurately interpret the estimate at a later stage. When first considering projects, we have to establish the quantities of each individual item, activity, or materials required to be built into the project, then estimating the costs of each item or activity, work out all associated costs in managing or executing the activity to establish the total cost for a project. Incorporating things like quantities, costs of materials, labour, utilities, maintenance, and on-site and off-site overheads can be difficult by hand. In estimating, you also want the flexibility to make changes to the estimate breakdown for the project and recalculate the project costs. The additional function of tracking costs as the project progresses also needs to be considered. Some of the benefits with utilizing spreadsheeting include consistent breakdown of activities as per project execution, systematic inclusion of quantities for each item and subsequent costs per each item for plant, labour, materials and management components. Easier to number crunch the cost for each item, area, sub-project and project. Easier for setting up relationships and formulas, i.e. a percentage profit only being applied across some items. Ease of categorizing and modifying items, such as labor rates of certain trade across different activities. Easier to update or make changes. Some of the disadvantages include initial setup time. Not making too complicated so errors can occur. Ensuring not to include hidden formulas so it's hard to track problems or errors. Having details in a spreadsheet does not make them more accurate. Garbage in, garbage out. When transcribing and entering data, it is easy to make errors and harder to pick them. Not only are spreadsheets great for tracking your current financial position, they also excel at what-if scenarios. What will my bottom line look like if I take an extended project by 3 months? How will this affect the project costs? Or if labour costs $40 per hour instead of 38, how will this affect the overall costs? Estimates and bills of quantities. Often an estimate of work is developed using a bill of quantities provided by a client. This can make the process simpler and remove the need for the development of a work breakdown structure by a contractor. Care needs to be taken in these circumstances to ensure that any tender price submitted includes significant contingencies and reference to the client's own information. In the event of an error in the quantity, it would be important for this to be at the client's risk. An example of a bill of quantities is as follows. Work breakdown structure. A work breakdown structure is obtained by decomposing a project into sub-projects and then into sub-sub-projects, and so on down to the activity or task level. The work breakdown may be represented as a tree diagram. The lowest level of the breakdown is that at which the adequate cost and duration estimates can be developed. What is adequate may change over the course of a project. The breakdown may evolve as the project progresses. The particular subdivisions chosen in the breakdown will reflect some convenient way of parceling and doing the work. Decomposition. Decomposition involves the following major steps. Identify the major elements of the project. Verify the correctness of the decomposition. Items broken down to lowest level needed. Is the scope of each item clearly and completely defined? Can we develop the work breakdown structure? Cost and duration estimates for each item at each level and identify deliverables. Assign a code to each item in the work breakdown structure.